So, I recently did a video talking about the rose fragrances in my collection, and I missed a few. Quite a few, actually. So the intent for the video was to talk about fragrances that had a rose note that was one of the predominant notes in the fragrance. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fragrances to add to my previous video on rose fragrances in my collection. So the first one I can't actually believe I forgot about, quite frankly. It is Greial by Maison Christian Dior. Yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorites from the line, so I can't believe I forgot to mention this one. This is a rose patchouli fragrance, and it's quite dry, but there is a sweetness in there as well. It's quite airy and translucent, and it smells grey. The rose in here, I don't know if I would classify it as jammy, but it is sweet, and that patchouli is quite dry and gives it a bit of a scratchiness, but the patchouli isn't too dark in this. It is quite light, so again, it smells grey. I think of a really put together woman in, you know, a light grey wool dress or something. That's kind of what I imagine a person like that would smell like. The next one is another one that I can't believe I forgot to put on, because I spoke about one of the other fragrances from this line as well, and this is Au Cœur du Desert by Andy Tower. This is kind of like the bigger, bolder sister of Loreal Oud Desert Marocain, which is probably the most popular fragrance from this house. But this one has a really dark rose note to it, so it still has that really dry, spicy amber that you get from the Loreal Oud Desert Marocain, but then overlay a really dark, dry, kind of velvety rose over the top of that. It's not super sweet, so it's a very different kind of rose fragrance in my opinion, and I really love it. The next one I don't actually have a full bottle of, but it's almost a full bottle because it's a 30ml decant. This is Tom Ford Noir Noir. Now I love this fragrance. I probably should have just bought a full bottle of it when I decided to get this decant. I had been through, I think, a 10ml decant and maybe a 5ml decant before that, and I really, really loved it. I just, at the time when I was ready to, to purchase this, I just wasn't prepared to fork out the money for the full bottle. So I decided to go with the decant. And it's obviously still going strong, so I probably don't need the full bottle, but it's nice to have the full bottle, especially when you love a fragrance so much. So this is quite a dark rose. It's not as dry as, say, the Au Cœur du Desert rose, but it is dark. It's a little bit velvety, but still not overly sweet. It has patchouli in it, which I think gives it some of that darkness, and also a little bit of oud, but the oud is very subtle in this fragrance, and it's not barnyardy at all. I also get saffron in here, but again, the saffron is not overly medicinal. A lot of fragrances, or a lot of things that I smell saffron in, it tends to have this sort of medicinal or very clean or clinical kind of vibe to it, but not in this one. It's very subtle, or it's very soft, I should say, sort of soft around the edges. The patchouli is not at all scratchy. It's a really, really classy fragrance. I absolutely love it. And the rose is quite sweet in here, but that sweetness is counterbalanced by, I think, the patchouli and the oud and the saffron. So, but if you really pay attention to it, it does have a bit of sweetness to it. So that is Noir Noir by Tom Ford. The next one is Cairo by Penhaligon's. This is really, really gorgeous. I love this fragrance. So this is rose. This is a rose oud fragrance, but it's kind of, I don't know, I feel like it's sort of along the lines of Noir Noir in the sense of it's dark, the rose is sweet, there you've got that oud in there that sort of gives it a woodiness. So it is quite woody, this one, whereas the Noir Noir, the woodiness is a lot softer. And the oud, again, the oud is not barnyardy. It's not really animalic in here. But you can tell that it's oud, whereas in the Noir Noir, the oud is possibly a little bit more on the woody side, whereas this you sort of can tell, you can still tell it's oud, you know. So it still has that that denseness to it. So yeah, this one is really, really great. The only thing I will say is that this one, the longevity is not that great. That doesn't really bother me too much because it's a massive bottle, so I can just respray it. But it's quite weird because you would think with the darkness of the notes and the gutsiness of this fragrance, it is quite gutsy when you spray it on and quite dense, that you would think that it would last a really, really long time. But in fact, it does kind of fade away within a few hours. So I would say that if the lack of longevity on fragrances bothers you, then this probably isn't the one for you. And I would say go with something like the Noir Noir. The next three are from the same house, but I'll talk about the next two together because I think I bought these at around about the same time, and so in my mind they're kind of related, but they're not really, not by smell anyway. So this is Loreal Oud by Maison Lancôme, and this one is Oud Bouquet by the same house. And couldn't be more different really when it comes to the fragrance. Oud Bouquet is a rose oud fragrance. But the reason I think I didn't really think of this one at first or think to include it was because it has this praline note that's just so sweet and makes it so syrupy. But it is a rose fragrance, effectively. It's a syrupy rose fragrance, syrupy rose oud fragrance. So, I mean, this has been talked about so much, so I don't think I need to go through it again. Not just by me, but I think it's just, generally, it's just been talked about an awful lot. So I'm not going to go through it again. I've had it for a long time. I really love it. And to this day, even though I go in and out of sweet fragrance phases, I still always love this, and I will always want to have it in my collection. That's Oud Bouquet. And then this one is Loreal Oud, which I think I have talked about on my channel before. So this one is completely different to that. This is a very spicy, dry rose oud fragrance. And there's a leather accord in here, I think. In fact, I haven't really looked at the notes, but I definitely get a sort of leathery vibe from this one. But it's not as pretty as Oud Bouquet, but this has a different personality for sure. So, I mean, you just can't, apart from the bottles, even the bottles are still quite different, but you can't really compare these two. They're just so different. I don't think this is very popular, this one. I think I've seen a lot of people buying this and then selling it almost immediately, or trying to. I'm holding on to mine because I do still like to wear this, even though I think now I probably have better dry rose oud fragrances in my collection. I mean, the Tower being a prime example. But there's just something about this one that I actually still really like, and I will probably only wear it in winter time though. It's not really something I really appreciate that much in the hot weather, but yeah, it's going to stay for me. The next one is also a Maison Lancôme one, and it is Pivoine Printemps. And I still really just love these bottles. And in fact, I love the little bottles more than the big bottles. They're so cute. So this is primarily a peony fragrance. I mean, I think peony is a type of rose anyway, isn't it? And it also has rose in it. And this is just really sort of light and airy. I think it's got a pink pepper note in it as well. I don't think there's really much to this fragrance. It's pretty straightforward. It's not super long lasting either, but it's not overly sugary sweet like a lot of other fragrances in this line are. So I really enjoy this one, and it's just perfect for a spring day. It smells pink, you know, it's pink and it smells pink. So that was Pivoine Printemps by Lancôme. And then the last one is Burberry Body, and I forgot about this one because I had this sitting in my bedside drawer because I think I was using it as a linen spray at one time. But I stopped using it as a linen spray because there is something about this fragrance that can be a little bit headache inducing for me, even though it's very light. I actually, when I first got it, I used to wear it to the gym. But there's just something about it that sort of gets in my nose and gives me a bit of a headache. So primarily what I get from this has a lot of different things in it, but primarily what I get from this is rose, musk, and cashmere wood. And I think it's the cashmere wood that gives me the headache, because there is something about that cashmere in some fragrances. When there's cashmere wood in it, it does make me feel a little bit ugh. But I don't know, or maybe it's the musk, who knows. But it's pretty, I just don't wear it that much. But anyway, that's Body by Burberry. It's if you like rose and you want something that's really light and easy wearing that you can throw on any time, it's worth checking out, because with that musk in it too, it's a nice one for post shower. And it's very affordable as well. I think I'm surprised because a few of these I did buy or acquire before I realized that I liked rose, and so I always had this thing in my head that I don't like rose fragrances, and as it turns out I had quite a few in my collection already, and I just didn't really pay attention to the fact that they were actually rose. So that is a lesson to me, to not write off fragrances just because they have a note in it that I think I don't like, because at the end of the day it really does come down to blending and composition and skin chemistry and all of that jazz. Anyway, that's it. I'm losing light very quickly, so I'm just going to go. Have a lovely weekend, everyone. See you, bye.
We were young and we were free and running, never bothered about what could be coming. Every day we danced and life was smiling. We were young and drunk